Hey y'all, it's Gypsy. Well, I just finished watching Annie's video talking about choosing a deck for her Tarot Together series, and so I wanted to put in on that. I didn't feel like typing. I'm sitting here studying, so I thought, well, I'll do a video real quick. Some of my very first decks are actually, I studied with the Gilded Tarot by Cyril Marchetti, but I wanted something different and something snazzy, and I love steampunk. So I got the Steampunk Tarot by Barbara Moore. I don't have the box, it's long gone, but you know, like Annie was saying, you can Google any of these cards, but Steampunk Tarot by Barbara Moore was a big one. The other one that I got very early on was the Paulina Tarot by Paulina Cassidy. Again, I loved the variety of the way that she presented the images and, you know, represented things. It was off the beaten path, but it was just right or weighty enough that I could make connections to my studies. So if you're looking for something like that, Paulina Tarot is great for that. It's just close enough that you can tie it to the Rider-Waite-Smith symbolism, the big stuff, but it's different enough that it kind of opens your mind up to different types of symbolism. So I really like it a lot. Joie de Vivre is a little bit further off the beaten path. It's also by Paulina Cassidy, and that's another one that I used early on because once I got Paulina Tarot, I was like, where can I get me some more of that Paulina Cassidy, because I really like her stuff. And now I started collecting her artwork, and I'm just, I gotta stop. Another deck that I liked early on, and this was for a very different reason, you know, I wanted a deck to do shadow work with. At certain times of the year, especially like around, you know, I don't know, Samhain, I like to use darker decks like Tarot Vampires and, you know, like my Halloween Oracle. You know, I like the shadowier decks. So I've, you know, come to love Deviant Moon Tarot. It is a very, this is not a deck that I would probably read for someone unless they were familiar with the deck and knew what they were getting into. I wouldn't spring that on a noob. That would probably scare the crap out of them. But it's a cool deck. In Annie's video, she says something about, you know, if it doesn't come with a guidebook, if it just comes with a basic little white book, sometimes it can be difficult, especially for newer readers, to really get the feel of what the artist meant, and especially when they're kind of off the wall like these are. This is a perfect example. I really feel like there's a lot going on in this deck that I miss because I don't know exactly what he has in mind when he's doing this, and it comes with a little white book, but it is not adequate. And it keeps promising us a guidebook, Patrick Valenza, but it hasn't come out yet. But anyway, this is, you know, a good example of when a guidebook would really be nice. Other decks that aren't quite as abstract, it's not as big a deal. And once you start getting more familiar with it, you know, that's not the end of the world. Shadowscapes has got a great guidebook if you buy the version that comes with the book. Same with Steampunk Tarot. If you're into a darker deck, the Tarot Vampires, you know, I know me and Al Moon 513 have both, you know, lauded the Phantasmagoria guidebook that comes with that deck. It's an excellent study guidebook that you really would learn a lot, but it is a very dark deck, so there's that. You know, once I really got into my tarot studies more, I did want to go back to, you know, square one, and I ended up finding the Pamela Coleman Smith commemorative deck in a local shop, and this is it right here. It's in a bag, but I love the backing, and you know, Annie made a point about the importance of the backing on the cards, and for me, I don't care if it's reversible or not. I guess, you know, if I think about it, I'm glad it is with this, because with the original tarot, I keep in mind reversals, but I'm not married to reversals, and sometimes if I go into a reading and I have no intention of reading them, I just set the cards out the way I want to because it's my world. No, I go with my gut. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If I know that the creator of the deck does not have that intention in creating it, I don't read reversals. Case in point, the Steampunk Tarot, the backing on these cards are not reversible. You can tell when a card is upside down when you lay the cards out. Barbara Moore addresses this in the guidebook, and she created this deck with the intention of it being used right side up. So I only use this deck right side up. I don't play back and forth. This deck gets read right side up. Whereas with my Pamela Coleman Smith deck, you know, this is the Rider-Waite-Smith Tarot. So I do take note when it's upside down. I look at the context. I look at what position it is in the spread, and I do use spreads, by the way, which I'm guessing is going to come up later at some point. But this is my go-to, my standard now. I really fell in love with the Rider-Waite-Smith deck once I had kind of ventured out and studied other decks. It's like coming back home. It's the base, you know, it's home base. Tag you're it, home base. One thing that I've noticed in recent, I guess, months are the collaborative decks that are coming out, the decks that are made by all different people that come together and create these decks together. And as much as I love them from a collector's standpoint, I don't see myself reading with them. Daily draw maybe, but I have an issue with continuity. That's the only reason why I haven't really read cards with these commemorative or collaborative decks, rather, because there's no continuity. There's no continuity in the symbolism. There's no continuity in the way the colors are used. I struggle to, identify patterns and things like that, which for me is kind of part of my, style of reading. And so it's disruptive for me. Two decks that I have that were like this are the Light Gray Tarot by the Light Gray Art Lab, and then it's 78 Tarot, and it's made by 78 artists. And so yeah, I'll probably never read for these with anybody, but as a collector I love having them, but for me they're just not practical. However, I do have multiple copies of this, because when I find a deck that is a limited edition deck that is going to eventually run out and they will not be making anymore, I like to get some for my daughters. So I do buy multiple copies, but I don't use them because I don't read for people that often. I'm not a card reader in my life as a profession, so wearing out cards is something that I haven't used any of my decks enough to wear them out. So as far as issues, well, I'll get into the cardstock in a minute, but anyway, I do have several copies of this, and I also have several copies of James Eads' newest deck, the Visions Tarot. Wow, Prisma Visions Tarot. I hate it when your brain skips. Don't you hate that? Does your brain skip? My brain skips. It's like I lose control of what I'm saying. It's weird. Anyway, I only have one of the special whatever with this numbered box and stuff, but I do have extra copies of this one for, gifting to the daughters one of these days. What else was I going to say? Oh, there was something else. Cardstock. Cardstock is another issue. Some people are very persnickety. Oh, and borders. Some people are very persnickety about cardstock and borders. Let me tell you about borders. I don't mind there being borders as long as they're not disruptive. If they're super fat, if they have a lot going on in them, that bothers me. When I see cards that have very detailed artwork, such as the Paulina Tarot and Shadowscapes Tarot, I do wish that they would not have the borders. But it's not like I hate the deck because it has borders on it. It's not that big a deal. It doesn't wreck my world. It's like, if I could make a suggestion to you guys, maybe leave that off next time. As for cardstock, again, I'm not super picky unless your cardstock is just total crap. That's annoying. I have an edition, a 20 anniversary edition of the Vertigo Tarot that I bought. The cardstock it's shit. And I was really, really disappointed in the quality of the cards. I mean, you can even see where they were like punched out of the sheet. I mean, it's not even a smooth surface around the corners of the cards. I'm like, really? That was frustrating. And then I have card decks like the Bonefire Tarot, which is an indie deck, and it's on this super thick cardstock, and the cards are a little squatter than regular, tarot cards. They're kind of longish, looking in nature. These are more kind of flatter like this, so they're not squares, but they're getting closer to being a square. The cardstock, so the cards are smaller, and the cardstock is so thick, you can't really shuffle the cards. I mean, the only way to do it is to lay them out all over the table and do it like this. If they can be shuffled, maybe you have to break them down, but it hasn't happened for me. So, but that is an issue. If it's too thick, for me, it's worse than being too thin, because then I can't even shuffle it, and I have to shuffle. It's part of my thing that I do. I have to shuffle. So if I can't shuffle them, I ain't using it. Simple as that. I guess that's all. This is an honorable mention. This is another deck that I really liked, and again, it was because the artwork totally sucked me in. I bought this in New Orleans. I've been wanting this deck for a long time, and I'm really glad that I waited and bought it in person in a shop in New Orleans. I actually bought this in Hex. I believe it's on Decatur Street, and I was totally stoked to see it in there. It was like a sign because I'd been watching and eyeballing this deck forever, and I walk into this kick-ass store in New Orleans, and bam, there's this deck I've been wanting, and I'm like, now this deck is connected to those memories of that trip, and it was a blast. I took my daughters, and we just had a total awesome girl weekend. It was so cool, but I have all these memories like connected with this deck, so you know, that's another thing. I don't use it all the time, but it's one of those, like, if I was going to read for my daughters, probably going to use this because now it's like our deck that we got, you know, on our trip. So anyway, that's my response. I rambled on, but I think I kind of touched on everything. I took notes. I think I got it. If any of you others out there want to make some videos, I'd love to watch some other people's. I'm going to go read and see what other people have written now, but I wanted to get that done. I actually need to get back to studying, but you guys have a great night or great day if it's day now, and blessed be.